Sudeep, let's wait for another 5 minutes to wait for more people to join in.
Sure, sure, absolutely.
Guys, another 2 minutes and then we'll start. I think we can start now.
This conference will now be recorded.
So, hi everyone, welcome to today's session. My name is Mahima and I'll be your host for the session today. So, in case during the session, I would request everyone to go on mute, and in case you come up with any doubts or queries, you can unmute yourself or drop your doubts in the chat box. Also, I would request everyone to keep their video cameras off during the meet. And now moving on to Tech Canvas, let me tell you a bit about Tech Canvas first. Techcanvass is an information technology certifications training organization for professionals. It offers internationally recognized certifications in the fields of project management and business analysis. It's a premier authorized training partner of Project Management Institute, USA, and premier endorsed education provider of IIBA. Okay, talking about today's session, it is quite helpful for people who are interested in the project management domain. We have with us Sudeep, who has over 17 years of leadership experience in IT project management and other domain. Over to you, Sudeep. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks, Mahima. I hope I'm audible, loud and clear.
Yes,
All
Sudeep, you
right.
are.
Thank you. So I hope everybody is doing good. Nobody is suffering from any midweek crisis. Today being Wednesday, a work day. I hope everybody will be able to pay some attention and will be able to take some takeaways after this session, after this webinar. So having said that, let's get started. Um, First of all, let us understand what is the performance domain. As per PMI, a performance domain is defined as the high level knowledge area that is essential to the practice of project management. In simpler words, a project performance domain is the set of skills, activities, and behaviors that contribute to the effective practice of project management. So, a performance domain is a logical grouping of some of the things we do to deliver a project, its outcomes, and thus its value. They are what we spend our time doing. Within each domain, you'll carry out a range of tasks as a project manager that falls into your responsibilities. The big thing to note here is that these domains apply regardless of whether you are doing iterative, predictive, or hybrid projects, or any blend of them. You still need to engage people, you still need to create effective processes and operate within your business environment. It's all about project management at the end of the day, right? So there are total three domains: people, process, and business environment as per the latest Pmbok. Today, we will discuss about the people domain. Now, talking about people domain, what exactly is people domain? People domain covers the soft skills required to be good and successful project managers. From leading teams of project participants to building the teams themselves, and even ensuring the project team members have the training they need to be as effective as they can be. The people portion of project management is near paramount. Within each domain, we perform certain tasks. Now, what are tasks? Let us take a look at that. Tasks are the underlying responsibilities of the project manager within each domain area. So talking about tasks, what are the tasks of the people domain? So the people tasks are total 14 tasks. As a list, it looks like a lot, but this domain shouldn't worry you. It is all about the stuff you already know and do anyway, because it is part of what it means to operate in a leadership role in a modern organization, whether you are working on iterative, predictive, or hybrid projects. Let us take a look at all these tasks individually and try and understand what these tasks entail, which encompasses the whole people domain. Our first task is conflict management or managing conflicts. As you can imagine, managing conflicts is crucial for project management. Project managers need to be able to interpret the source of the conflict and at what stage it is at, and analyze the context in which the conflict is in. You will also need to evaluate and recommend conflict resolution solutions. To use this particular task or to execute rather to this particular task, for example, you can interpret the source and stage of the conflict and then try to analyze from the context as to why this conflict is arising, and then try and evaluate or recommend or reconcile the appropriate conflict resolution solution. Our next task is team leadership. As a team leadership, as a team leader within a project management domain, you should be able to lead a team with utmost importance and guidance. We need to know as project managers how to set a clear vision or mission, value the servant leadership, and support diversity and inclusion, as well as determine the appropriate leadership style that we need to implement or use. Leading a team also includes knowing how to inspire, motivate, and influence both team members and stakeholders, and how to analyze team member influence. Right? For example, you should be able to set a clear vision and mission. You should be able to support the diversity in terms of behavior types or thought processes. From a value servant leadership perspective, you should be able to relate to the tenets of the servant leadership with the team. Also determine an appropriate leadership approach, whether you want to be directive or whether you want to be collaborative. You should be able to inspire, motivate, and influence team member or stakeholders in terms of team contracts or social contracts or reward and recognition system. Analyze the team members and stakeholders' influence and distinguish various options to lead various team members and stakeholders. Right? Our next task is supporting team's performance. A project team, or rather a project management, is not just about leadership. Project managers should need to be able to support team performance as well. Being able to appraise the team members' performance with respect to key performance indicators, supporting and recognizing team members' growth and development, as well as verifying the performance improvements is key for any project manager that the project manager should be able to explain. Our next task is empowering the team members or stakeholders. So under this particular task, you should be able to determine and bestow the level or levels of decision-making authority within the team members or within the stakeholders. Team members or stakeholder empowerment is another key area that you all as potential PMP candidates should be able to be aware of. Whether organizing teams around team strengths, evaluating task accountability of the team, or supporting task accountability, a project manager is vital for such team empowerments. Our next task is adequate training. Ensure your team members or stakeholders are adequately trained. A project manager should be able to explain how to determine required competencies and elements of training, allocate resources for training, determine the training options based on needs, and measure the training outcomes. This is generally where, as project managers, we perform the fit gap analysis. Right? If you are not aware of fit gap analysis, I would encourage you to go back and read about it. Our next task is building a team, because without a team, a project manager cannot execute a project, right? So project managers need to know how to appraise stakeholders' skills, deduce project resource requirements, and how to continuously assess and refresh team skills to meet the project needs. Project managers will also need to know how to maintain a team, and how to knowledge transfer. Because at the end of the day, this will become very, very important when you start transitioning the project to the customer. So you should be able to know how to complete the knowledge transfer through the project team members. Our next task is removing roadblocks. As a servant leadership, we keep on hearing this that a project manager should be able to remove impediments. So you will need to know how to determine, prioritize, and address critical impediments, obstacles, or blockers for the team. Project manager should also need to know about how to use a network to implement solutions and reassess continually to make sure that impediments, obstacles, or blockers are being appropriately addressed. I'm sure you would be realizing by now that these are all tasks that you already perform as a project manager in your day-to-day life, right? Having said that, let us look at the next task, which is negotiate. And by negotiate, it essentially talks about negotiating project agreements. Project managers will need to know how to analyze the bounds of the negotiations for agreement and assess priorities and determine ultimate objectives. How to verify that project objectives are being met, participate in agreement negotiations, and determine your negotiation strategies. This is again very important because if you sit on the table across your stakeholders or across your team members and you do not negotiate or you do not know how to negotiate, in that case, you will end up spending more than what you can afford, both in terms of your project budget as well as your effort hours. Our next task is about collaboration. And by collaboration, it essentially talks about collaborating with the stakeholders. So collaboration with stakeholders is key for project managers because the buck stops with them. At the end of the day, as a project manager, you need to take into account what the stakeholders' objectives are, right? So project managers need to know how to evaluate engagement needs with stakeholders and optimize alignment between stakeholder and the project needs. Building trust with stakeholders to accomplish project objectives should also be known to a project manager. It cannot be the case that the project stakeholder is asking you to build a bridge and you build a dam. Or even if building a dam is more appropriate or more feasible with you, or you believe that that is what will help the stakeholder, you need to be able to collaborate with them appropriately by building trust. Isn't it? Talking about building trust, the next task talks about building a shared understanding. Understanding amongst team members is the glue that holds the project team together. So survey all necessary parties to reach a consensus. Project managers need to know how to identify root causes of misunderstandings, support the outcome of agreements, and investigate potential misunderstandings. Right? Our next task is about engaging and supporting virtual teams. Especially post the pandemic era, we have seen that most of our project teams have turned virtual. Even though now we are gradually coming back to normalcy, still we are seeing that this particular practice is being continued and extended across all organizations and across all domains. So that is why this also becomes very important for a project manager to know and understand and perform. So project managers will need to examine virtual team members' needs, implement the options for engagement, and continually evaluate the effectiveness of virtual team member engagement. For example, examine the virtual team members' needs from the point of environment or geography or culture, etc. You can also try to investigate alternatives such as what kind of communication tools you should be using or whether your team should be co-located or not. But when you're doing this, make sure that your virtual team members are engaged and they agree on your decision. Once that is done, you can also try to implement options for the virtual team members engagement. And in the meantime, you should be able to continually evaluate the effectiveness of this virtual team member engagement setup. Our next task is about defining and creating teams ground rules. Because if you do not have ground rules, any and every team member will be running in their own appropriate direction. The whole team will be like a headless chicken. So you cannot allow that being a project manager. You should be able to huddle the team together on every single day basis, right? So project managers will need to understand how to communicate organizational principles with team members and stakeholders, manage and rectify ground rule violations, and establish an environment that fosters adherence to the ground rules. Maintain the discipline within the team is all this is about, this is talking about. Our next task is mentoring or mentorship. By mentorship, we mean mentoring the relevant stakeholders. This task statement requires knowing how to allocate act on the mentoring opportunities. This is not an additional burden on the project manager. You need to understand this aspect. Mentoring is part of your responsibilities. So as and when you come across an opportunity to mentor a project stakeholder, please take up that opportunity and mentor that person. Our next task is about applying emotional intelligence. You will need to know how to assess behavior through the use of personality indicators, how to analyze personality indicators, as well as how to adjust to the emotional needs of stakeholders. Just like your intelligence quotient, there is also an emotional quotient. You need to take into account, that aspect of each and every individual project stakeholder and modify or act accordingly. Modify your behavior or act accordingly to that particular quotient of each individual team. I'm sure as a individual, as a professional, you will also prefer somebody who is senior to you, taking that aspect into account when you're working in a corporate environment, in a professional environment. So you as a project manager should also be able to, promote your team's performance through the application of emotional intelligence. Right? Having said that, we have completed all the tasks that are there in people domain. Is there any question that anybody would like to bring on? Any questions that are coming in your mind? Mahima, do we have any questions on the chat? Can you help me with that, please?
Yes, Sudeep, there is one. So Octopus is asking how to really execute all these tasks or slash duties.
The thing is that when you are leave project management, okay, if you leave project management for a moment and think about this, do you not perform this in your day-to-day life as it is? When you are there in a professional environment, you are already performing these tasks. The people domain is that is why the easiest of these domains, because you are already in the act of it. So how do you perform your let's take for example, considering the last slide was about emotional intelligence. How do you assess behavior? There is no hard and fast rule because every individual's behavior is different. And you as a project manager should be able to accommodate and should be able to modify your own behavior according to that, right? So if a let's say if a particular resource is very laid back, how do you address it? Pembok does not specify that. PMI does not specify that. As a human being, we know that. So the project management aspect only specifically talks about that you should be able to recognize these kind of aspects of your project management and be cognizant about it, right? So that is what people domain is all about. There is no specific hard and fast rule about how do you perform each and every individual task, because Pembok gives you guardrails, Pembok gives you guidelines, Pembok suggests you, advises you. But with the changing dynamics of the project management industry, every single project, every single aspect, every single activity, every single task has its own recommendations and its own guidance when you're trying to perform it based on how the team's composition is. Does that answer your question, Octopus?
Yeah, Sudeep, there
How
is one.
important?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw that. Dheeraj, how important is people? At the end of the day, we are a social group, isn't it? And when we talk about project resources, we are essentially talking about our man, machinery, material. That means even if we give the equal weightage to all these three aspects of resources for a project to be successful, that means people is carrying at least 33%, which is one third of the total importance. But in practicality, if you see, it is not 33%, it is nearly 50% of your total importance. So that is how even the PMP exam is designed now. People domain covers around 42% of your total questions, because in practicality, in real life, people is what you live, breathe, and eat on a daily basis as a project manager. So if you cannot manage a team, if you cannot uh, gather a team, huddle a team, and then eventually end up with the final outcome of that particular project, you might not be successful as a project manager. So I would say it is as good as 50% important, giving the rest of the 50% to the other resources and the budget and all those quality, all these aspects.
Guys, if you have any questions, you can use the chat box. There's a question, Sudeep.
How likely am I to crack PMP? Shivani, I have 100% confidence in you that you can crack PMP. Do you have that confidence in yourself? You tell me. You give your best shot. Every single person on this planet Earth can crack PMP. It is tough, but it is not impossible. Have faith. Follow discipline. Complete your trainings. Complete your Pmbok. Complete your books. Complete your study material. Prepare. Cover mock tests. You will be able to crack PMP. Welcome, Shivani. Any other questions? I would be happy to help. I mean, not just from a people domain aspect. If you want to ask any question about project management in general, also I'm happy to help. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm a know-it-all. There can absolutely be things that I do not know about, or cannot help you with. But I'll do my best. That is for sure.
There's one more. So
Yeah.
in the chat box.
Yes. Yes, Octopus. Just by Rita and Pembok, if you can cover these two, read it on your own with complete faith and sincerity, you will be able to pass it. But an ideal situation is read it twice at least, alternatively, starting with Pembok. If you can manage, if you have the tenacity, please go ahead and read it thrice. And then take up your mock examinations also, so that you can assess your progress and you can figure out where you stand at that point in time. Okay. What is the major difference between a project manager and Scrum? Scrum is majorly from an agile perspective. Project manager is more from a predictive perspective. The roles and responsibilities are different for a Scrum Master and a project manager. When you're working in an agile environment, generally it is the Scrum Master role that you are performing. When you're working in the hybrid or predictive environment, in that case, generally it is the project manager role that you are performing. At the end of the day, you are a leader for the team. That is not yet decided, Octopus. Let's see. I'm not sure. Even if I am not, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or queries. I would be happy to help. Even after this webinar, it's fine.
Guys, if you have any questions, you can ask Sudhit. Okay, then, Sudhit, I think we are good to wrap up. Thank you for this amazing session. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
No problem. And a quick announcement, there are new batches coming up from Techcanvass. For CAPM, the new batch start date is 1st of October. And for new batches for PMP, the start date is 15th of October. If you have any queries, concerns, if you would like to take up these trainings, these batches, please feel free to get in touch with Techcanvass on the contact information which is there on your screen.
Thank you, Sudhit.
All the best, everyone. Whoever is preparing for your PMP and whoever is already performing, project manager roles in your day-to-day life, please be mindful about these tasks. Again, not trying to say that these are some things that you do not do or you do not know, but PMI tries to promote and encourage a cognizant application of these tasks in our day-to-day lives, which definitely makes us a better and successful project manager. With that note, let me end the webinar here.
Yes,
This
so the
conference is no longer being recorded.
All right.